everyone, my name is Kira and I'm a proud Bundjalung and Gumbaynggirr woman from Grafton in New South Wales. Today I'll be taking you through your rights and responsibilities for when you are renting a home. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners past and present from the country on which this presentation is being held. So, why are we doing this presentation? Too many times, Aboriginal tenants' advice and advocacy services across the state are faced with Aboriginal people who only contact them when they are at high risk of being evicted. Sometimes it's too late to help them, and this can be stressful for people who don't know where to go to for help. Aboriginal tenants' advice and advocacy services can help in the negotiation process with the landlord or agent. Their main role is to prevent homelessness. This presentation is therefore designed to give you a step-by-step guide on what you should do when starting a tenancy, as well as what you should do if you are already in a tenancy. If this information is not relevant to you at this time, there would definitely be someone in your community that you will be able to help with the information you are about to learn today. So let's get started. The first thing I want you to be aware of is a national database called TAAP. Basically, it's a list that the landlords or real estate agents put people on to warn other landlords that you are a bad tenant. You remain on that list for 3 years. You are therefore blacklisted for 3 years. The only way to be taken off before the 3 years is up is to convince the person that put you on to take you off. This can be very difficult. You don't want to be put on ticker because you will find it very hard to find other accommodation. When looking for a house to rent, you should always take any references that you have with you. The best references are from previous landlords that you have had a good relationship with. If, however, you don't have any of these, the next best is to get a reference from people who can vouch for you for being a good character and trustworthy. They should not be from family or friends. They should be from an independent person who would have some influence on the potential landlord or real estate's decision. Also, you may want to put a covering letter with the application telling them why you want the property. At the start of every tenancy, you should be given a copy of your lease agreement by the landlord or agent. The first thing that you should do before you sign the lease is read it thoroughly. If there is anything which you don't understand, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Remember, you are committing to a legally binding contract for which there is no cooling off period. You will want to be certain you understand and agree to what you are signing. This is a copy of the front page of a residential tenancy agreement. Take a quick look at it so it is familiar to you. Before signing a lease, make sure that 1. You have read the lease and asked questions if there were things that you didn't understand. 2. You know the length of the lease you negotiated before you sign, which means it can be for 6 months, 12 months, or for some other period. 3. You know that you must be offered at least one way to pay the rent, which does not involve paying a fee to a third party. Whatever way you pay your rent, always make sure you get receipts and keep them in a safe place. 4. You know that any additional terms to the lease are negotiated before you sign. 5. You have checked that all additional terms to the lease are legal. For example, the lease does not include a term requiring you to have the carpet professionally cleaned when you leave, unless you have agreed to that as part of a condition to allow you to keep a pet on the premises. I can't stress this enough. Make sure you have read the lease agreement and understand what is in it. You don't want to find out that you have to pay for things that you weren't aware of at a later date. You can get someone to look it over for you, so don't be pressured into signing it straight away. At the start of every tenancy, you should also be given the following by the landlord or agent: 2 copies of the premise condition report, a bond lodgement form for you to sign so that it can be lodged with New South Wales Fair Trading, and keys to your new home. Let's talk about the condition report first. This is where the landlord goes from room to room and notes whether everything in the house is in good condition or not. You should be present when this is done, and there is a part for you to say whether you agree with the landlord or agent's assessment. What you should do with the condition report is make sure you fill in your part of the condition report and don't forget to return a copy to the landlord or agent within 7 days. Note any damage that is already there, otherwise you may be charged to fix it when you move out. This is an important piece of evidence. If you don't take the time to complete it accurately, money could be taken out of your bond to pay for damage that was already there when you moved in. This is a copy of an actual condition report. The left side is filled out at the start of your tenancy, and the right side is filled out when you leave. Make sure that you are present both of these times and don't be afraid to note anything that you disagree with. The next thing you should be aware of is the bond. You will be required to pay the equivalent of 4 weeks' rent as a bond. This will be paid to the landlord or agent, who will then pay it to the rental bond board. You should be given a bond lodgement form for you to sign so that it can be lodged at the New South Wales Fair Trading Office. When you move in, you will get a letter from Fair Trading sometime during the first 2 months saying your bond has been received and advising you of your rental bond number. If this doesn't arrive, call Fair Trading to make sure it has been lodged, and you should always pay your rent before or on the due date. So here is a breakdown of upfront costs. You are required to pay no more than 2 weeks' rent in advance, unless you freely offer to pay more, and no more than 4 weeks' rent as a rental bond. So to start your tenancy, you will have to have the same amount as 6 weeks' rent. If you are unable to raise this amount, there are organisations available that can provide assistance. You should, however, make sure that you are not charged for the cost of preparing the lease and the initial supply of keys and security devices to each tenant named on the lease. In relation to any promises by the landlord or agent, for example, replace the oven, paint a room, clean up the backyard, etc., make sure these have already been done before signing the lease and filling out the condition report, or you have the promise in writing that the repairs will be done at a later date. This will be a vital piece of evidence if you have to go to the tenancy tribunal if the repairs haven't been done. During your tenancy, you are responsible for your visitors. You are responsible for anybody you invite into your home. If they cause any trouble or damage to the home, then you are responsible, even if you're not at home when it happens. If you didn't invite them into your home, you may have to prove that they weren't invited. This could include reporting incidents to the police. You are also responsible for reporting any repairs immediately, paying rent on time, and taking care of the premises. Here are some top tips for problem-free renting. Follow these useful tips to help avoid problems when you are renting. Take photos. Photos are a great way to record the condition of the property when you first move in and during your tenancy. Make sure that your camera records the date when the photos are printed, especially areas that are damaged or unclean. Keep these in case the landlord objects to returning your bond at the end of your tenancy. Keep a copy of your lease, condition report, rent receipts, rental bond number, and copies of letters or emails you send or receive in a tenancy folder, and put it somewhere where you can easily find it later. Never stop paying your rent. This is a very important point. I cannot stress this enough. Never stop paying your rent. If you stop paying rent, you could end up being kicked out. If the landlord is not complying with their side of the agreement, example, by failing to do repairs, there are other things that you can do to get them to keep their side of the agreement. Keep a diary of your dealings with the landlord or agent. Record the times and dates of conversations, who you spoke to, and what they agreed to do. If repairs are needed, put your request in writing to the landlord or agent and keep a copy. This type of evidence is very helpful if a dispute arises which ends up in the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal. The New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal is where tenancy decisions are made. It is the place where landlords or agents take tenants when there is a breach with their agreement, example, for not paying rent, or tenants can take landlords when they have not lived up to their side of the bargain, example, not doing repairs. Both parties can, however, settle a dispute and come to an agreement before the tribunal hearing is even heard if they wish. If that is not possible, then the tribunal member will make a decision on the most appropriate course of action to take. Always comply with the terms of your lease. In particular, never make any alterations, keep a pet, or let other people move in without asking the landlord or agent for permission first. You should also consider taking out home contents insurance. It will cover your belongings in case of theft, fire, and natural disasters. The landlord's building insurance will not cover your possessions. If the property has a pool or garden, be clear about what the landlord or agent expects you to do to maintain it. Be careful with what you sign relating to your tenancy, and don't let anybody rush you. Never sign a blank form, such as a claim for refund of the bond. If you are happy in the place and your lease ends, consider asking for the lease to be renewed for another fixed term. This will remove the worry about being unexpectedly asked to leave and helps to lock in the rent for the next period of time. That concludes our presentation on tenants' rights and responsibilities. Please remember to take the handout from today's session back to your own communities. You never know when someone that you are close to will require tenants' advice and advocacy services. We will now have a brief question and answer session following this presentation. This is goodbye from Kira, and thank you for your attendance.